So hi guys, Jonathan Graham here for Guitar Interactive Magazine. We're here with Phil Collin from Def Leppard. Brand new album out, incredible. 7 years in the making. You must be delighted that it's finally come.
Absolutely. We've only been working on it for a year and a half, but yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a quick one for us. But yeah.
So I understand with this one, you know, that you guys didn't really get together much for this. It was a new way of putting it together. Is that correct?
Well, different because normally we were going to go into the studio, but obviously COVID happened, and instead of, we actually wasn't planning on recording, but me and Joe started writing. We started sending each other ideas, MP3 in it. Joe was in Dublin, I was in California.
Sure.
And before we knew it, it was the best way we've ever recorded.
Wow.
Because you didn't have pressure, you didn't have to wait around in a studio for someone to finish. And even if you were doing something in a studio, there's always that thing, it's like, I better hurry up here because people are waiting outside and da-da-da-da. You didn't have any of that pressure. I'd go to the beach, I'd come back, I'd actually record. So I've got an idea, yeah, it don't work, or that does work. And then when I sent it to Joe, it was something that I absolutely thought it was 100% finished.
Yeah.
And then we'd be trading back and forth. So it really took on a life of its own, this way of doing it.
Yeah, well, it's a fantastic record. Diamond Star Halos is the name, of course. Now, you're going to get asked this a lot today, but I know that you guys, you talked quite a bit in the 80s and a few interviews about the Mark Bolan influence, and you being fans of it. Now, obviously, you can't help but not notice that reference is a very specific line.
Yeah.
Is this a nod to Mark Bolan and that great music of the past?
It's a nod to the era. So me and Joe would talk about the era and you go, oh, it's very hubcap Diamond Star Halo, just referencing, Bowie, Glitter, all of that stuff that happened in the early 70s. So we would always do that. And it kept popping up, the references kept popping up. We used Mike Garson, who played with Bowie on Aladdin Sane all the way up to his death, actually. He plays on 2 tracks on the album.
Yeah.
So there's little references. I played an acoustic solo that it was a real nod to Mick Ronson.
Incredible, by the way.
Thank you.
Really
And
nice.
what the beautiful thing was on Lady Grinning Soul on Aladdin Sane, Mike Garson's playing this beautiful piano and Ronson's doing this thing. So I got to play with Mike Garson and again, at a lovely Ramirez acoustic, Spanish guitar that Ronan McHugh told me how to mic up. He said, have you got that guitar? He said, go mic it up. And I said, well, how do I do that? He said, get your 87, put it in the closet, because I got all these clothes and it deadens the sound.
Okay.
And 2 feet away. So I was kind of like there and just literally done what he told me, and it turned out great.
It's actually fantastic to hear and really heartwarming, because even when I was talking with Viv there and how he was saying that he was recording at home and he hadn't really tried iRig before and he was trying these new things, and you're at home and you're putting it in your closet around your clothes, and for so many of the guys watching, that's what their setup's like at home.
Right.
Now obviously you guys, you've got the choice of Neumann mics and stuff like that. No, not everyone's got that, but there is something very relatable about the fact that you guys were just doing this at home, and what were some of the sort of ups and downs of getting, because it's obviously come out incredible, but it couldn't have just been like the first setup of the first take. Surely there was some ups and downs.
It was easy for me.
Wow.
It was
Okay.
And going back to the Neumann, I got a Neumann, and I would go upstairs usually because my son's 3, and if I start singing, he's just all over the place. You actually hear him on the tracks. A lot of the stuff I actually done in a big room, the living room, with a 58 handheld.
Okay.
And I go, well, this is a demo. Send it to Ron. It's on the album, like all the stuff on Kick, all the vocals I did on that. 58.
Amazing.
Yeah, just handheld, and I'm just singing like that. And same thing with the guitars. We all use Guitar Rig, but I've been using the same preset since 2011 on the Man Ray's albums, the Delta Deep stuff, other Def Leppard albums, and he would reamp them, get a different sound on Guitar Rig, but a lot of the stuff we use my demo sound. Like Kiss That Rocks, they're the original guitars. Kick, Fire It Up, they're just original guitar sounds.
Wow, so it was just the vibe was right, the tone was there, and
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible. I mean, that's the thing from you guys for so many years. You know, this incredibly high production value is what you expect from a Def Leppard record, and Diamond Star Halos it exactly delivers on that. Now, something very special about this record is that it does have that balance of some of that classic production that you would expect from Def Leppard. You know, obviously, you know, the vocals. You know, it's got to have that classic vocal sound and these incredible guitar parts, but there is a lot of modern elements as well going in there. Was that something that you guys set out to make sure that this record had? Because there is 15 tracks, so was it getting that balance of some classic vibe and some modern stuff?
Not even slightly. It was just how they came out.
Okay.
And what we did do that was different on this one, and again, I think it's because, we wasn't all in the same studio. There's something clinical about, normally we'd do 30 tracks of vocals each.
Okay.
Then everyone would do 30 tracks. Then you would do each other's harmonies, 30 tracks, and you'd have this blanket. Some of these things have got just 8 tracks of vocals.
Right.
And so you can actually hear everyone's the character and the voice. There isn't that so much of a blanket thing.
Okay.
So, you know, I can hear Vivian's voice, I can hear Sav's voice on things, and I can hear me, obviously.
Yeah.
And you don't always do that. Sometimes it's just blanket Def Leppard vocals, and so there was a lot less of them, and I think that really helped. And that's something we wouldn't have necessarily done, but it was like Ronan was in a studio. Ronan McHugh is our producer, and he's our out front guy, and he's been with us for a million years. He would be at his studio at home, and we would just send him stuff, so he didn't have to wait for pesky musicians all the time doing, you know, stuff like that. So he had a lot more energy, and I think that was the main thing. So because everyone had so much more energy, because we're doing it a different way, it was more inspiring.
Yeah.
Because of it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic record. And obviously, not naming any names or whatever, but you know, for some of your contemporaries putting out records, sometimes these records can be a little bit like, oh, it's the same old thing, or it's a little bit flat. You know, you guys, you sound like a fresh young band.
Right.
You know, not that. Talking about, but it's, you know, you guys have been around for such a long time. You know, it sounds almost as if it's an insult. Like, you know, you get what I'm saying.
I know, absolutely, yeah.
But you know, was that just, you know, do you guys just always just have that? You're just sort of up for it. It's not about, like, basically what I'm kind of asking in a long-winded way is, would you guys put out a record if you didn't want to do it?
No, and we didn't have to, because we actually initially we thought we're going on this. We got this sold out tour because initially in the States, you know, us, Motley, Poison, Joan Jett,
incredible,
amazing. But we thought we'd just do a new song, and that was the original thing. We didn't know we was going to do this.
Yeah,
and it just the ideas kept coming. It didn't stop. We actually started the next one. We had to stop at 15.
Okay,
there was 2 in the go that were very close to being finished. That's along these lines of these other songs as well. That totally Diamond Star Halo style, you know.
Wow. Okay. So. Well, I mean, now I just got to hear that. Now we're sitting on here on Wednesday. I just heard about the record coming on Monday there, and then finally got to hear it yesterday. Managed to get a few listens. Absolutely love it. But what I don't know is, I don't know when the album's dropping. I'm hearing some extra voices on there, people that I don't recognise. There was the guest guitar solos on there. Can you tell us some of these special guest stars that have appeared on the record?
Alison Krauss, she's out actually with Robert Plant at the moment, but she's got more Grammys than any female in history. Actually, she's not. Beyonce just got one more than her last year, so. But she's right up there. She's just this amazing bluegrass kind of country singer. Just got this angelic, beautiful voice. Yeah. So, no, she's on 2 tracks. We wrote 2 songs that kind of had a kind of almost like they're not country, but a feel, a bit of a country feel. So
you can imagine it on that American country radio station, you know, for sure. It was a surprise. I was like, whoa, you know, and what a lovely. Addition to the record.
Absolutely,
so that's fantastic that she's on there. Now the track, the guitar.
This guitar,
which is obviously a very personal one that's going on there. Talk us through that one. Was that a new track?
17 years old.
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
I had a feeling that was maybe one, because it's. But my God, it's come out incredible.
Thank you.
So talk us through then the creation of that.
So a friend of mine, CJ Vanston, he's a keyboard, as a session player. He's produced Joe Cocker, Toto, Steve Lukather albums. Is in LA, and we've been writing songs together for 17 years.
Yeah.
And when we do, we usually sit down and go, it'd be great if there was a song like this, and da-da-da-da-da. And he said, well, what about that feeling you get that, you've got this entity that's with you, no matter what happens. If it's terrible, you have an awful day, and you've always got your instrument, and you can always rely on.
Yeah.
So that's what it was about. Obviously, piano with him and this guitar, because we're saying it's a sexier instrument. I mean, I think it's got these other.
Well, we're biased, aren't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. But he said this is a keyboard player as well, so he's saying as well. So we wrote this song based on that feeling, and that thing. And Joe had been championing it for years. Every 5 years he'd go, I think we should do this guitar, because the demo had been floating around for years. And when we finally started getting some of these other songs together and through, he said, should we give this guitar a dusting? I said, well, you think? He said, yeah, I think it's the time to do it. And so he'd done a vocal on it, and it was like, this is just amazing. Yeah. His vocal on it he's singing better than I've ever heard him ever. So that's the other thing. People go, as you get older, the top end goes.
That's it.
Bullshit.
Yeah, that's what I didn't even want to touch on, because it's like, it seems like it's tempting fate, but so many people, they lose it, and it's.
Well, you know why they lose it, and this is about aging in general with bodies or anything. We can't be asked to be active anymore. We can't be bothered to do this and that. So it disappears. Your body goes, or your voice goes. Oh, if you ain't to use me, then I'll disappear. I noticed when I started sitting down learning the songs to sing for the tour, I was really struggling for the first 2 weeks, and then I got back into it. Even though I've been singing on the album, it's different when you do it. So it's just that. It's just like keeping it going, because it's a muscle. It's like anything else. If you So that's what and like I said, he's singing better than ever. So that was really inspiring as well, and especially hearing that comeback with him. And then we got Alison. We said, what one of these two songs would you like to do then? And she's like, can I do them both? And we're like, yeah.
Well, like getting, the name of the track wrong there, I'm still getting used to it, as I said, just for the first time yesterday. 15 incredible tracks that are on there. Out of those 15, I mean, some of them you've got to make a decision on what's going to be the singles. Do we know yet what's going to come out to launch this record?
Kick is the favourite, because it's just so in your face, rock stadium anthem type thing, and it kind of ticks all the boxes. So, and they're usually the toughest songs to write, because it's you don't want to sound contrived or corny, and but that's got a kind of integrity to it. So it's and I mean a great representation of what's on the record as well, because it's with it being varied and what have you. Now, we're celebrating 45 years of Def Leppard, yourself. Were you in now 36 years, is it, with the Actually,
band?
39.
39 years.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Now, it's not only that, of course, you've had this incredible 30 plus, maybe 36 years with Jackson.
Yes.
And, it just goes from strength to strength. You see new tops, new setups, new features with every new release. Talk us through those early days with Jackson. What sort of turned you on to them in the early days?
Actually, Mutt Lang had we started writing the songs for Hysteria in '84 in Dublin, and he had this Charvel, and I'm like, well, this is great. And I'm just playing it all the time. Great. And he said, I know the guy Grover Jackson who kind of.
Sure.
They'd taken over the Charvel stuff as well. So they sent me, he had a word with him, they sent me a lovely Charvel, and that was it really. I didn't stop. They made my first Jackson, I think it was the crackle finish that's in the Pour Some Sugar on Me video. I actually played that on the track as well. But it's the crackle one and the Bela Lugosi one. They actually made those two around the same time.
Incredible.
And that was it really. And they're not far from where I live, so I can actually go out to the factory and just update stuff, everything from the roasted wood that they do, the baked wood, and new pickups. I remember when the thing came where you don't have to use a truss rod up there, you can just dial it on all of these things, and watching that progress. I know everyone does it now, obviously Fender, it's the Fender factory, so it's Jackson have a part in the Fender factory. So, it's ongoing, and woods change, and I've got there's one that I use on a few of the solos, From Here to Eternity. I do the end solo that's my tribute to two of my heroes, Blackmore and Schenker. Yeah. So I kind of got that in, and Open Your Eyes, I used it on the end of that solo as well. So
fantastic. What was it? So you mentioned there on those two tracks, but what about for the rest of the record? Was there quite a varied guitars that you were using?
Very varied. I used mainly a PC1, obviously, maple top PC1,
the classic.
But there's some other. I used a couple of Squires. I used a Squire Telly. My old favourite blonde Fender Telly, I use that. It's got DiMarzio Super Distortions on it that still sounds like a Telly. It's just got a bit more oomph to it. And I have my own DiMarzio Sugar Chakra, so that's on a bunch of my guitars. So
Killer.
That came out, and a Squire Surfcaster that I got. Fender did this weird semi-acoustic thing in the 70s, and it really didn't catch on.
Right.
And Squire just done a re-release of it. And during COVID, I got this guitar. I was always curious, and I couldn't go out, and it was kind of cheap. And I ordered, and I'm like, wow, this is great. And I was learning Midnight at the Oasis, the stuff you do during COVID, right? The solo on Midnight at the Oasis and all these great chords and everything. And I'm doing it on this Surfcaster. I'm thinking, wow, this is killer. So I ended up using it on the album. I used it at the intro of this guitar, the lead part, which is half me, then Viv does the second half, and then I used it on Open Your Eyes, the main guitar, rhythm guitar.
Killer.
On it, so, yeah.
Yeah. And do you get do you buy into the sort of vintage guitar thing? Do you ever find because obviously, it's nice for people to collect them and what have you, but, some people, they'll be saying, there's a magic in these old instruments and what have you. Is that something that you sort of buy into?
There is a magic in those instruments. I mean, I've got a 1954 175, Gibson 175, and I pull that out every now and again. It's amazing, and it's like playing butter. It's like just beautiful. And again, we were talking about the baking of the wood. So one of the things that, like a Stradivarius violin or an old guitar, that the wood dries out and leaves like capillaries, almost like veins. Obviously, you know this, but it's I'll just say it anyway. Just it's almost like a semi-acoustic in wood. Okay. So it kind of creates just a bit more sound, so it sounds sweeter. And that's the idea of doing the baking. I don't know how they're doing with baking acoustic. I don't know whether they've done that. I met someone who was doing that. I don't think it makes it brittle or anything, but it adds to the tone. And I think with some of the older guitars, that's really what you're hearing. Having said that, I've got the Bela Lugosi guitar sounds way better now than it did ever before. Wow. It's 30 odd years old, and it's just got a thing. I don't know, it's because it's worn in.
Yeah, but you've got to imagine over time with the blood, sweat, and tears, and and the way the pickups are, and things are going to get a little bit looser, or the wood's going to change. You would imagine it's got to be that thing. I mean, I think that's the thing about it. Some people, obviously, with a lot of the guys watching, we can get obsessed over tiny little things with guitars, rather than practicing it. It's like, oh, I need to change this thing, or maybe I've got the wrong cable or what have you. But sometimes that extra 1 or 2% can be the difference between inspiration and not.
Well, it's all about that. It's like, how does it make you feel? Same with amps as well. I had a friend who played in a band. He said, I've got my 2 wet cabinets here, and I got these 2 out ones, and they're dry. And I said, you ain't even here. You ain't even in the mix. It's like not even there. But if it makes you feel better and makes you play better, that's all. That's what counts. And it's the same thing there. If these tiny little things, these incremental things that no one else is even going to hear, but you are, and it makes you play different, then absolutely
that's
knock yourself out.
Yeah, that's it. Now, we spoke a little bit earlier about sort of keeping things in check, keeping that level up. What is your sort of go-to for keeping your chops together then? Midnight at the Oasis.
Yeah,
Clearly.
that'll keep you going.
Yeah.
I had a thing. My knuckle tore off the tendon tore off the knuckle a few years ago, and I was in a brace for like 6 weeks, and when I come back, it was like, ugh. So I started learning slide, and then stretching things. So I would do like harmonic minor scales, and get the. So I would do that really to get it back into, and went with really light strings, and then built back up to my 13s and stuff like that. But initially it was like painful, and stretching was painful, and everything else. But keep doing it. It done that. So I do kind of do that every now and again. And especially if you go down the neck where you have to really stretch and do the thing that kind of. So I kind of do that, yeah. Yeah,
you're just keeping, it's almost like weight training, I suppose, in a way, just keeping the muscles.
Definitely,
the muscles
and a few jazz things that I used to do when I was young, like there's a Joe Pass thing that was just nuts. And so I kind of do that just to get and Larry Coryell, there was a thing that he used to do as well. So I kind of incorporate that still, I listened to that in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, for sure. What was, the first great guitar that you had?
My first guitar ever was a Gibson SG.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. So that's.
But my mum and dad were kind of broke,
right?
So it took 2 years to get it. So I saw Blackmore at the Brixton Sundown. I was deep. It was it was Machine Head tour,
right?
And I was like, that's what I want to do, and I finally got this guitar, and I've still got it. Obviously, it's amazing. So
does that ever make any of the records these days?
It doesn't, but it should.
Yeah,
it really should.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, incredible to have something like that. Now, we mentioned that you guys are going to be out on tour with Motley Crue and Poison and all of that. Now, obviously, with Motley Crue recently, they've had their film, and then there's the Pam and Tommy thing. Now, you guys had the film. 2000. Well, you were one of the first to have the film before, like Bohemian Rhapsody and all that sort of stuff. Now, it's not considered the best movie, the 2001 film, but people would love to see, I guess, a Def Leppard film.
Yes, yeah.
Would you ever do this?
I don't think, after the Queen one, and Elton John one was great.
It shows you that it can be done. And it
does, but they've done it. It's much more of an interesting story, I think. And plus you've seen it. It's like a rock band does this, comes from this, massive success, someone dies. That it's always the same thing.
It's always the same, yeah.
And so you it's been done. So I don't think they could do that. And the one that VH1 MTV did for us was, it's a TV hour which is 50 minutes with commercials and what have you. So it's what it was, and it low budget, obviously, all of that stuff. So I don't think it was ever going to be spectacular, but it was just an insight.
I mean, at the time, like the sort of out there view on it, it's like, it's not good. I mean, at the time, just being a Def Leppard fan, anything that was coming on, I would want to see, and it's like, oh, cool, getting to see the story on the screen. But it's just with the way things have changed over the last 20 years. Yeah, it's like there is that desire to have those things, but whether or not, you all get along too well to have.
We did something else. There was a documentary, and they were kind of shocked that was they're like, well, there's nothing here, because no punch ups and that.
Do you know what is the key to you guys just getting along so well?
It's always been substance,
right?
So it's always been about making great records and having a great show. So anything else, it's like it takes so much time and effort to get those things right that you don't really have time for anything else, or the other things don't filter their way into it. You know what I mean? That's really it.
Well, it's incredible, and it obviously pays off for the fans. We get to hear this great music, get to see the live shows. Talking of live shows, we talked about America. Are you going to get back to the UK soon?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we got this year's kind of done and dusted.
Sure.
This goes till September, October, I think. And then I think we've got some other stuff coming up around Christmas. Not sure, that's not confirmed. Okay. But next year we want to do UK, Europe. That'll be in the summer, I would think.
Fantastic. And what about at NAMM? You got anything new coming out with Jackson?
What have I got? No, just my new. I've got a few PC Supremes that I play that are just made for me, really. They're not like a production model. And like I said, my latest PC one, the Walnut one, but that's like 2.5 years old now.
Yeah, that's it. It's on to the next thing. Well, look, congratulations on the Diamond Star Halo. It's an incredible record, and we'll see you when you hit the road in the UK.
Absolutely. Cheers. Thank you.